Hello, everyone. This is Heidi with Downtown NorCal Live. Approaching over 100 interviews since the pandemic started, I wanted to go back and review how some businesses are doing that I talked to early in the process. The very first Zoom interview I conducted was with Bobby Coyote. He is the owner of Dos Coyotes. Welcome, Bobby.
Well, thank you, Heidi. Sounds like you've been very busy, over 100 interviews. Geez, that's almost one a day, huh?
It's been a little busy. That's okay, though. We all have to do our part. So I wanted to get right into it with you. Um, Since we spoke, we talked about a drop off in business that you noticed March 14th. It was kind of a surprise, and we were early when we talked. We spoke March 19th, and you were calling at that time for government assistance and check-ins with businesses. We didn't know anything about the PPP. That phrase hadn't even been invented yet, and so since then you've had a wild ride. Can you talk about that a little?
Well, it is a wild ride. It's like being on an 80-foot wave and trying to stay on your board. It's been very, very tough. And different stores present different types of problems. Actually, um, the two Davis stores, North and South, they've been doing okay. It is really kind of difficult. Once the dining rooms opened up, then we started bringing people back on, and the sales really are just about the same as they were when we had the skeleton crew right after the pandemic hit, and nobody knew what was going on. One thing that I think we've learned is who are the good developers and landlords that we want to work with in the future, and which ones that we don't want to. And that's probably one of the most important, valuable lessons that I've learned during this whole thing. A lot of our other stores, for example, Arden Mall, that was shut down for over a month, and then we went to, actually a little longer than that, maybe it was 2 months, and we went to reopen that one right after Memorial Day, and we were open for 4 days. We brought everybody back, started making food, and the next thing you know, the riot started and they shut that down for another 9 days. So it is open now. The dining room is not open, but we're able to seat out in the common area. But who knows what's going to go on? It's not, that store isn't part of the main mall, which is closing because, as of today, I believe Arden Mall is going to be closing again. But we'll see if it's even sustainable to keep it open at the moment, because without the mall, one never knows if that one's going to be able to hit. But I know that a couple of our other stores, the one on Folsom at 65th, has been doing well. That's been getting actually, a fair amount of catering through the med center. So that's been happening. Our Roseville store is just kicking it. I mean, it's as good, or maybe even just a little better than it was last year. So we're very fortunate. And then the remainders would be our Folsom and Elk Grove store, and those are, they're down a little, but they're doing okay. They're not doing great, but they're not doing bad. So
Yeah. You mentioned something I didn't expect, and that has to do with being a tenant and where others are controlling that. So does that imply that you might be changing some of your locations?
it's not that I'm implying that we'd be changing locations. It's really more for the future of which developers or landlords that I would work with and which companies I would never work with again.
Mhm. As you mentioned today, the governor has called for all 58 counties to close to indoor dining, as well as wineries, bars, museums, etc. So as an industry insider, what can you say? And I know you keep your eye on what's going on in the restaurant industry around you and throughout California. How does this feel with the announcement today, even though Yolo County, for example, has been operating this way for a couple of weeks?
Well, both Yolo County and Sacramento County, shut down about 2 weeks ago. With Placer County, that order just came in yesterday, so they knew it was going to come in. So our dining rooms were actually open. And the funny thing about it is Sacramento County might get a few people, venturing out into the dining rooms. and actually eating there. Yellow County, most people didn't want to eat
Mm.
in Davis. They didn't want to really eat in the dining rooms. They'd eat out on the patio or get it for takeout. Placer County, though, different story. They'd all be in the dining rooms. So different counties, people are all different everywhere. So
Mhm.
I think as far as what's going on, there are going to be restaurants that are really just so sit down that they can't really survive just doing a little takeout, where others are able to do a lot of takeout and they have their patios and it's a lot easier for them. We just actually converted a restaurant. It's not a Dos Coyotes, but it was a Broderick Roadhouse up in Folsom. And we changed it to the Coyote Bar and Kitchen. And it had a nice feel. We were just beginning to, build a little traction in there in the dining room, and that one had to get shut down. So it's still open on the patio at this time, but we're not really sure for how long, if it's going to be sustainable to just eat on the patio. So it just really depends on the restaurant and what your clientele is, how well you're known. But to try and open a new brand during a pandemic, that's pretty difficult unless you just straight takeout. I don't know how well Burger Patch is doing here in Davis, but that seems like it would be a lot easier because it's not an actual sit down restaurant for the most part with servers, and you just order at the counter or call it in, or maybe they have online ordering in the app. I haven't had the chance to visit the one in Davis, but I think that one would have a pretty good chance of doing well during this whole pandemic.
Mhm. I think we're really fortunate in California to have good weather, and I can't help but think ahead to the fall months that are approaching and rainy days. Does that concern you at this point, or are you just really living in the day we're in?
Well, I think the summers, believe it or not, they get so hot out here that unless you have a lot of shade and it's not on cement, sometimes it's too hot to eat on the patios on a day like what we had over this past weekend and possibly even today. So I always think that spring and fall are the best months to eat on a patio. Personally, that's my preference, at least here in the Davis area.
Right. When we spoke in March, people were really wanting to know how to support local businesses. People were asking about gift cards and giving all kinds of suggestions over social media about how to support local business and telling people about what they were doing. Do you find that as time has gone on, people have remained as supportive and interested in local businesses?
Oh, absolutely. I think that the people that still have, um, they're still working, they're still getting a paycheck, they still want to support everything that's out there and keep all their local businesses thriving, the best that we can. It's definitely hard on everybody. There's so many people out of work at this time that, they're not really able to go out. And then you have people that have businesses, and some are doing really well and some aren't. So, I feel I'm kind of in the middle. Some of mine are doing really well and some, Art and Mall. I mean, that's a really tough one. So I know how that works. But for the most part, I think people want businesses to be there when we get out of this whole pandemic.
You expressed a great deal of care for the safety of your employees. You mentioned that you're not open to make money at this point. You're wanting to sustain your employees, but of course make them safe. Is that a burden you get used to, or is that something that carries through every day?
I think the most important thing is we got to keep everybody safe. And, one of the things that we've done in a lot of our restaurants is the ordering counter. We put tables all in front of it. So, you're further back than the regular counter. So it kind of puts you at that 6 foot distance. And it is a little more difficult to hear everybody with a mask on. And then we have the plexiglass in front of them. So, we're doing what we can to keep everybody safe. So both guests and our staff.
Great. Um, in terms of adjustments you've had to make, has there been any adjustment you've made that has been particularly surprising in terms of its success?
You know, the adjustments we've made have just really just been that we kind of geared up more for the takeout. And I really think that right before the pandemic started, as you mentioned, it was Friday the 13th is really when the rug got pulled out from underneath us. We had started putting out flyers promoting a new app that we had for 2 months right before that happened. And when Cinco de Mayo came on, everybody, I think, wanted to support their local, Mexican inspired restaurants. And we were so busy on that app that it was a little too busy. So that was kind of, one of the bright sides about all the promotion that we had done with that before the whole thing started.
Is the app the preferred way for people to order still?
I think once you have the app, it's a lot easier. You don't have to get on the phone and wait for somebody. The orders are more accurate. When you're on the phone and you're talking with the cashier, you might say one thing and they don't hear you quite as well. And when they repeat the order back, you might not be hearing them. And that's where mistakes happen. So I think the app is actually very, very thoroughly the best way to go, or online ordering
Okay. And
off our website.
is the app Dos Coyotes?
Yeah, it's doscoyotes.com, and there's online ordering on there. And then there's also the Dos Coyotes app that you just get off your Apple phone.
Okay. So a hard question to ask, is this survivable?
Well, we've made it this far for this long, so I'm hoping to be here when we get out of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know about other restaurants. I know there are a lot. My friends have the Veers, and they were opening back up, and then they had a few more issues. I think they did get open for a little while, but now that it's gone back where they don't have the dining room, so they might just shut that back down again and just play the waiting game. So it's hard to see. But it is tough. I mean, it's really a lot of work. I mean, when you don't have your dining rooms open, and we had to open 9 dining rooms, so that gets to be a lot of work. And then you got to shut them back down to open them up again, and have to furlough employees and bring them back, and yeah, it's really difficult.
Yeah. Do you anticipate that we will be in that kind of expansion and then shrinking for the foreseeable future?
Well, until they obviously get a vaccine, or just a great cure that people feel comfortable going out again, and hey, if I get it, they have a great cure that it's going to pull that death rate way down. We're going to be seeing this for a while, but I mean, I don't know if we really had to do the mandate in the beginning. Of course, I'm not really the brightest person on all of this, but I think if we were just really doing the masking where everybody had to wear a mask, and if you didn't wear a mask, you got fined or you had to do 100 hours of community service, we might not have ever had to shut down. I don't know. I mean, I think about that one all the time, though.
Yeah. Sounds to me like as a business owner, you really want to get through this quickly and you're encouraging people to comply with public health orders. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you faded out on that last part.
Oh, that you're urging people to comply with public health orders.
Well, we don't let anybody in unless they have a mask. And I've gotten like 3 or 4 Yelp reviews in the last week, from someone, like a bunch of police officers came into our Elk Grove store and they weren't wearing masks, and somebody yelped us on it. And, by the time you get to them, the harm's already done, where people have seen people in the restaurant without them. The same happened, I think, at our Folsom location, and, we're got the signs on there. We tell people, hey, we can't serve you. If you go outside, you can call the order in and we'll do curbside service for you, or we'll just bring the food out to you. But there are a lot of selfish people out there. They just don't care. And by the time you get up to them to tell them, somebody's seen it, they're upset. And I don't blame them. I mean, I don't want to get sick. I don't want people around me not wearing a mask. And, I mean, we're only a foot away. You don't have a mask on, but we're doing a Zoom, so I think it's okay. But it really is. There are a lot of selfish people out there who just don't get it. They don't get it that, it has nothing to do with themselves, but it has to do with the fact that they're not being selfish towards other people.
Yeah.
So I'm all for everybody wearing a mask. And do I enjoy wearing a mask? No, it's dreadful. It gets really hot. It makes my glasses fog up when I got to wear sunglasses or my regular reading glasses. But hey, it's something that needs to be done. And, I'm happy to do my part. And I just hope that people would realize that they need to do their parts also.
So you're calling for mutual sacrifice.
I think that's exactly the perfect way to say it.
Any words of hope you can leave consumers with?
Well, I think that we'll get through this. We just all need to stay safe.
Yeah.
I think that, hopefully within the next 6 months, we'll be done with this thing.
I'm going to hope.
And maybe sooner. I'll keep both my fingers crossed.
I'm crossing too. Everything. So
Yeah.
I've been talking with Bobby Coyote. He's the owner of Does Coyotes Restaurants. And Bobby, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Heidi.
I'll see everyone tomorrow. Bye-bye.